Kyrie Irving is going to be sitting down for quite a while. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, the Pacers and the Grizzlies are both in pursuit of Cam Johnson. Which team is going to come out on top and get the talented forward? And then also, Bradley Beal and Jusuf Nurkic have been benched. Is this a ploy by the Phoenix Suns to get Bradley Beal to waive his no-trade clause? We're going to talk about all and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host here, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And man, listen, first up, we got breaking news. This one just came down just a couple minutes ago as of this recording. This one's from Shams, who says this: Dallas Mavericks star Kyrie Irving has a bulging disc in his back and is expected to miss at least 1 to 2 weeks. Sources tell ESPN there's optimism that the treatment over the coming days will provide a return to play target date. Now, missing Kyrie Irving is going to suck, right? Because they're already missing Luka Doncic, right? And this is a team in the Dallas Mavericks that are competing for something, right? And you know, I was asked once the Dallas Mavericks, once they did lose Luka Doncic, if they were going to be able to stay afloat enough with their depth and things like that. They've lost 4 in a row. They're 4-6 over their last 10, and now losing Kyrie Irving on top of all of that is gonna hurt the Dallas Mavericks even more. Now, I do think for him to be out 1 to 2 weeks, it's not that long in the grand scheme of things, right? Luka's going to come back eventually, and I do think that this team can go on a run. They just ideally want to stay out that play-in. And that's not to say even if the Dallas Mavericks do fall into the play-in area that they can't make it out the play-in, but with it being a one-game elimination, you want to try to avoid that because any team can get hot on any night. But this is made even more kind of worrisome for the Dallas Mavericks as the team right below them in the standings in the Los Angeles Clippers just got Kawhi Leonard back. He played his first game back in the Clippers' new arena. And so with Kawhi coming back and maybe that Los Angeles Clippers team's finding their groove, of course, there's a little bit of concern on how this is going to shake out for the Dallas Mavericks. They can fall into that play-in. And, when Luka comes back, they're going to be dangerous, right? I don't think anybody would say that the Dallas Mavericks aren't one of the best teams in the Western Conference when fully healthy. But the fact is, in the Western Conference, we know 1 bad week, hell, 2 bad weeks, much less a month while Luka Doncic is going to be out, can really set you back considerably in the Western Conference. So, the Dallas Mavericks do want to stay, keep their heads up in regards to that, and we'll see how it ends up shaking out for them. But Kyrie Irving is going to be missing 1 to 2 weeks. They expect to have a more clear timeline in the coming days, and I'm sure that they're hopeful that it's going to be more promising than not, because if it does end up going the opposite direction, man, that could definitely hurt the Dallas Mavericks in their run to the playoffs. Again, I mean, even with Luka coming back, towards the end of January, that's still more than enough time to find some rhythm with those guys. Kyrie is going to be out 1 to 2 weeks. So, let's hope for the best when it comes down to it. But this is another hit for a team in the Dallas Mavericks that have already been hit with a major injury. And as the season continues going on, these major injuries continue to be things that just hurt the teams repeatedly. And we'll see what comes out on the other end of that. But let me know down below. I mean, they already lost 4 games in a row. How far do you think the Dallas Mavericks are going to fall now that Kyrie Irving is also going to be missing 1 or 2 weeks? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. Now, with that said, let's move into the next topic for today. This was supposed to be the initial first topic in this, and that is that the Pacers and the Grizzlies right now seem to be teams that are pursuing and ready to make a move for Cam Johnson. This one comes from Brett Siegel. He says this: conversations between the two sides as far as the Grizzlies and the Pacers and the Nets. Conversations between the two sides led to whispers around the league of a potential package featuring Obi Toppin, Aaron Naismith, and at least 1 unprotected first-round pick and other draft assets. Mark Stein added into this is that the Pacers are the team to watch in a trade pursuit of Cam Johnson. That Indiana is currently 18-18 on the season, and acquiring Johnson would not only give them an additional scoring punch to help them reclaim the heights their offense reached last season, and they would also be able be getting some additional positional versatility at the forward spots, which is a bit of a weak spot for them. So the Pacers have been a team that has struggled at the beginning of the season, right? They've really come along here lately, more so than not, to start winning more games. They find themselves at the 8th seed right now in the Eastern Conference. They're 7-3 in their last 10, and if they can add a player like Cam Johnson, no mistake about it, he helps them compete and contend more in the Eastern Conference, right? And it's funny how, like, with all the big names talked about, the Jimmy Butlers, the Zach LaVines, the Bradley Bills, all these names let's talk about, it's really so far just the smaller name, the Dennis Schroeders, right? Dorian Finney-Smith, now Cam Johnson, right? As the Nets continue to look for to capture the flag from their race for Cooper Flag and all that type of stuff. But, the Pacers are a team that they are definitely not living up to the expectations based off what they did last year. Now, we knew that they were very flawed. They were one of the worst defensive teams in the league last year, but their offense really helped keep them afloat, right? So if you can have a package built around 26-year-old Obi Toppin, 25-year-old Aaron Naismith, and some draft compensation, which they do have and they do have available to offer, it would be future, right? They can't offer their first-round pick until 2029, so it would be a future first-round pick to go to the Brooklyn Nets in this case, but the Nets got nothing but time, right? I don't really think that the Brooklyn Nets really balk at a first-round pick no matter how far out it is, just because, they have a long path before they're nearly at the level of being able to contend, and if it's unprotected from the Pacers, that actually could help them out because, like, the Pacers had a disappointing season this year to start off with, right? Who's to say that they don't disappoint again and that pick, especially if it's unprotected, ends up actually being something? Now, Cam Johnson is 28 years old, right? He's making a $22 million contract, so that is what it is when it comes down to it. But, we'll see. If the Pacers do land Cam Johnson, I actually like how it could help them in the Eastern Conference. It really doesn't do much for their defensive issues, but it does help them maybe reclaim and, like it said, have some positional versatility at that forward spot. At that point, you still have Pascal Siakam. You still have Benedict Mathurin. You still have Andrew Nembhard as well. Then you're adding to that, Cam Johnson to fit somewhere in between in that as well. Not a bad proposition for the Indiana Pacers, if you ask me. But then there's another wrinkle to this. The Memphis Grizzlies reportedly are also interested in them, and per Mark Stein, that they have been frequently mentioned as a suitor for Cam Johnson as well. Now, he did say that there is a bit of cynicism on that front, mentioned that it's unclear how eager the Grizzlies are to pursue him, right? And, they were one of the teams that, matter of fact, before the Dorian Finney trade went down, they were mentioned as maybe the favorite to land Dorian Finney-Smith. So, if the Grizzlies are one of the teams that do become aggressive at going after a player like Cam Johnson, you got to look at it. They have way more first-round picks, even sooner than they can give up, than the Indiana Pacers, which could maybe sweeten that pot a little bit as well for the Brooklyn Nets in a case like that. And the Grizzlies are a team that, listen, they're top 5 in defense, top 5 in offense. They are a very dangerous team. If you can add a talent like Cam Johnson, but the question is what would they be willing to give up, right? Cam Johnson makes over $20 million. So you got to look at the contracts that they would have available. Maybe Brandon Clark is a part of that. At $12 million, that gets you a large part of the way there. Luke Kennard, right, is another player that maybe they can feature in there. I'm just saying, it'd be interesting to see. But then at that point, if you're able to have a forward rotation, that you have Jaren Jackson Jr. in there, right? You still have Concheres in there as well, who plays some forward shooting guard for them as well. GG Jackson eventually is going to come back for them, hopefully at some point this season. Hey, it could be a really nice move there for the Memphis Grizzlies as well, and something to monitor to see what they can do. I say this, right? It's interesting that it's two teams in opposite conferences that both are are trying to make their move up. Now, the Memphis Grizzlies are the third best record in the Western Conference, right? And they're 23-13. So if they're able to add a player like Cam Johnson, mainly built around a first-round pick and just matching salaries, of course, that puts them right up there. They're not that far back right now from the Houston Rockets, which are the number 2 seed. And theoretically, of course, the Memphis Grizzlies would hope that would push them further into that area to compete for one of those top 2 seeds in the Western Conference. But it'd be something to watch, right? There's going to be a lot of teams that I think between now and then are going to be interested in Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson is an interesting player. There are some definitely concerns with Cam Johnson overall. Make no mistake about it, right? But I think when you look at it as well with Cam Johnson, he's definitely can help some teams. And if you have already a solid base and you're really looking at just what he can bring on for you, we'll see what happens there. But overall, I tell you what, watching Cam Johnson, could he be the next domino that's going to fall? We'll see. But another one of those dominoes that could fall, that could actually help if he does, is Bradley Beal, right? So the Suns right now are in a 4-game slide, and they are a 4-game losing streak, right? And they have announced that they're going to make some major changes to their starting line. They're going to be moving Bradley Beal and Jusuf Nurkic to the bench. And that's an interesting thing as well. This comes from Chris Haynes as well. He says the Suns are removing shooting guard Bradley Beal and center Jusuf Nurkic from the starting five, beginning with Monday's game against the Philadelphia 76ers. They will reportedly be replaced by rookie forward Ryan Dunn and veteran center Mason Plumlee. Chris Haynes also points out into this, there is some tension in the Suns locker rooms with players unsure of their roles and frustrated with how they're being used, and the coaching staff is still figuring things out. The Suns started off this season looking like they were going to be really good, right? They won their first 9 games of the season. They now rank last in their Pacific Division. They're 15-18 on the season. And this is a thing that you look at with the Phoenix Suns as, again, they're a cautionary tale over why that second tax apron, you better be sure of your roster before you go into that second tax apron. Because now, reportedly, the Suns want to be aggressive about going after Jimmy Butler. But the only move that they can realistically do to get that done is sending out Bradley Beal, whether it be a 3-team trade or to the Miami Heat directly. And they can't do that because Bradley Beal has a no-trade clause. So all this sits into a situation now where people are asking and speculating, are the Phoenix Suns trying to play hardball a little bit with Bradley Beal to make the situation so uncomfortable that he's more willing and open to waive his no-trade clause? That's an interesting aspect in all of this. And I think that that's going to be the thing to watch in this. If the Phoenix Suns can convince, whether it be through things like this or whether it be through this conversation on realizing, hey, this is maybe best for you as well, the Phoenix Suns are going to be stuck with this roster. And as long as they're stuck with this version of the roster, it's going to be tough for them to really improve. They find themselves right now the 12th seed in the Western Conference, even outside of the play-in, right? Now, they're only, when you look at it, 1.5 games back, so they can get back in there with a tough week, right? They lost 4 in a row. But the problem is the Sacramento Kings, which are above them, have won 4 in a row, right? So this is a difficult proposition for the Phoenix Suns, and they find themselves in a place that is of their own making. And the only thing that the Suns can really do if they want to correct this thing is make moves and is hope that somebody like a Bradley Beal is willing to waive their no-trade clause so they can move him and try to break up some of the monotony on this team. Now, I will say this. I personally think that the Phoenix Suns are a team to watch out for this offseason, that they could blow it all up. I think that, they could seriously do something brash and blow it up because of the lack of flexibility that they have. Now, that would still even pose a little bit of difficulty for them as they're a second tax apron team. They can only do so much, right? But I would not be surprised if the Suns aren't able to convince Bradley Beal to waive that no-trade clause, that this then turns into something where, hey, they may have to do something crazy, wild, and unexpected to try to make any type of forward movement with that team. We'll see. I mean, this is just a thought right now. It's not anything that's for certain or something like that because there's still a lot of season left to be played. And for all we know, the Phoenix Suns can get some health. They can catch some momentum, and then they can be right back there in the thick of it for the playoffs, especially in that Western Conference. But you look at them. They are $31 million above the second tax apron. $31 million. And they're $20 million, slated to be $20 million over the second tax apron next year without doing anything. Now, in subsequent years, they're $67 million beneath that second tax apron and even $54 million below the first tax apron in 2026-27. But it's a long road before you get there, right? So the Phoenix Suns, man, if they want to clear up some things, they could have when you look at their tax bill for this season estimated is $188 million in just luxury tax payments. And $211 million in luxury tax payments next year if they don't do anything. That's crazy for a team that right now is on the outside looking in of even the play-in. And they have some talent there. The Suns continue to be a cautionary tale of why you need to get this thing right and be sure. Because, hey, every team's looking at them now and saying, we don't want to be them, therefore we're not going into that second tax apron. And you can't really blame them in a case like that. We'll see what happens. Can the Phoenix Suns find their way? Can they find their path? Can they convince themselves or convince Bradley Beal to waive that no-trade clause? We'll continue to watch it and monitor it here, man. But overall, just difficult. Let me know what you guys think on everything down below. What do you think about the Phoenix Suns? Do you think that they can convince Bradley Beal to waive that no-trade clause? Or do you think they're going to be forced to face some tough decisions? What do you look at when it comes to the Indiana Pacers and the Grizzlies in regards to their pursuit potentially of Cam Johnson? What do you guys think there? And then, of course, Kyrie Irving. Can the Dallas Mavericks stay afloat enough now that they're going to be without Kyrie Irving? Let me know all that down below. Make sure you guys are following the show at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything basketball related, but that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video, probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.